everybody, it's Courtney. Today I'm going to be making a card using the Outline Snowflakes background stamp by Simon Says Stamp, as well as a sentiment from the Winter Scene stamp set. I'm starting off with a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock here, and I'm just smearing some Tombow Mono Multi Glue on the back, letting that dry, and then adhering that down to the base of my MISTI. This way it won't shift around. Tombow Mono Multi Glue is repositionable when dry. So I'm treating my cardstock with my anti-static tool, and then I'll ink up my stamp with Versamark ink and stamp this down. I did end up stamping this twice just because Versamark being a clear ink, it's hard to tell whether you've gotten a good impression or not. That's why it's good to kind of stick that down. It won't shift around. You can easily stamp it twice just in case. Once that was stamped out, I'm going to go ahead and use the Steel Navy embossing powder by Simon Says Stamp. And this is kind of like, it's kind of like a metallic. It definitely has some shine to it, kind of like a pearl shine to it. So I'm going to sprinkle that over my entire piece of cardstock here. And I did have some stray embossing powder that stuck to areas that I didn't necessarily want it to stick to. So I'll just take a dry paintbrush and kind of smear that around and blow that off. Rather than trying to scrape off the stray embossing powder, you're probably going to scrape off some more that you don't necessarily want to. I also have my cardstock cut down to 4.5 by 5 3/4, which is a little bit bigger than an A2 size card. This way it'll give me some room on the edges to kind of hold my cardstock while I'm heat embossing. Also, if I get finger smudges, it's more than likely going to be on the edges of the card. That way I have some room to cut down my panel once everything is said and done. So once I was happy with that, I went ahead and heat set that. And we're going to be doing a background with the Arteza Real Brush pens. And I'm basically just, and I apologize, I don't have the names on my pens. My pen set is a little bit older, and I don't think they had names on them back then. So I'm kind of just scribbling down different colors. I have 3 different blues and a purple color here, and I'm literally just scribbling away. Once I had most of the cardstock covered, obviously there are some white spaces, but we'll fill those in. I'm going to take a flat paintbrush, and it's pretty wet. I'm not dabbing this off on a paper towel at all. I'm leaving this pretty wet. And I'm just gonna go back and forth along my entire cardstock and let these colors blend together. Now you can heat set this in order to kind of speed up the drying process. I don't, especially when I have embossing on it, because I don't want to remelt that embossing powder. So I did let this air dry on the Bristol Smooth. It probably only took about 10 minutes or so, so it doesn't really take that long at all. Once that was dry, we're going to be doing some bleaching, only not with the bleach, if that makes any sense at all. So I'm taking a paintbrush, and I have a paper towel off to the side and just clean water, and I'm just basically filling in these little images, and the embossing helps because your water will kind of stay put. And I'm letting it sit there for a couple of seconds and then just dabbing that up with my paper towel. Now these little dots, you can't really tell that much, and it's not going to completely take out the color. You can certainly use bleach. A lot of people will put a little bit of bleach in a water brush, and that will completely take up your color. This I wanted to be a little bit more subtle. I wanted the snowflakes to stand out from the rest of the background, but I still wanted them to have a little bit of color. So I'm just laying down my water, going straight up and down with my paper towel. You don't want to move that paper towel around, or else you're going to move the water around, which will affect the rest of the background that you don't necessarily want to change. You can always go back and add more water. If it's not taking up enough color, I'll go back in, let it dry, and then I'll go back in and add a little bit of water. Maybe let it sit a little bit longer. There are certain areas that tend to be a little bit darker on the panel, so you may have a little bit of trouble kind of taking some of that color up. Like I said, you're still going to see the color through, but it's hard to tell now, but once everything is done, you'll definitely notice a difference between the snowflakes and the rest of the background. So once all of that was completed, I have a little helper now. We're gonna go ahead and trim down that card panel, and I'm trimming this down to 4 by 5 1/4, and because I want to have a border. And I love this embossing powder. It's so pretty and so pearly and so shiny that I wanted the border to be that embossing as well. So I'm taking another piece of cardstock here, and this is just regular Neenah Solar White. You can use any cardstock for this. And this is cut just slightly smaller than an A2 size card, but a little bit bigger than my card panel itself. And I'm just gonna take my Versamark ink pad here and smush all 4 sides. And I'm working on a scrap piece of paper, and then I'll just flip over that scrap piece of paper and sprinkle on my embossing powder. I wasn't thinking here, and I sprinkled it on all 4 sides and had no way of picking this up. So I will go ahead and heat set this off camera so I don't blow my embossing powder all around. And you'll see that it doesn't give you great coverage when you're covering a large area the first time. So I'm gonna go back in and add some more Versamark on all 4 sides. This time I was a little bit smarter, and I kind of pinched my cardstock in the middle, sprinkled on that embossing powder, and then you'll see when I heat set this, you'll get a much smoother finish. It almost looks like that metallic cardstock that you can purchase. I just wanted, and which you can certainly use, by the way, but I just wanted to make sure that everything matched perfectly as far as my snowflakes and my little panel here. Now this looks like a total mess, and you wouldn't want to put this on your card, but you're not going to see, you're only going to see the border of it. So don't worry about what the middle looks like. I have fingerprints and I have smudges all over the place, but nobody's ever going to see it. So I'm going to take my Tombow Mono Multi Glue, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere my embossed panel here down flat to my card base, and then I'll use that same glue to adhere my watercolor panel right directly over that. And like I said, you're only going to see a little bit of this embossed edges. I wish I would have left a little bit more, especially being I embossed so much of it, but I didn't, and it is what it is. I did put a little bit of glue in the middle where that embossing isn't, just to kind of help this stick a little bit more. It may take a little bit of extra time to dry, just because we're not adhering it paper to paper. There is embossing there. So once that was stuck down, I took a Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen and I added shimmer to each one of these little snowflakes. And now this particular pen will kind of blend your colors a little bit more, but being we had lifted so much of it up, it really didn't make a difference. Once that was done, we'll move on to the sentiment, and I'm just taking a scrap piece of the Neenah Solar White 80 pound, and I'm treating this with my anti-static tool, stamping both of my little sentiments with Versamark ink and sprinkling on that same steel navy embossing powder. I went ahead and heat set that and trimmed these down into strips. I didn't want these strips to be the exact same size, so I ended up taking out my smaller paper trimmer and trimming that one "May all your wishes come true" sentiment down a little bit further, and then pop these up with foam tape right in the center of my card base. And that is the card for today, guys. Thanks a lot for stopping by, and have a great day. Bye.